How do you grow an online business that is both successful and sustainable? In this episode, I speak with Rebeca Tracey, who is the founder of the Uncaged Life. Now, Rebecca is literally the definition of living uncaged. She is a rock climbing, live life to the fullest, uncaged type of person. And she has been doing business since 2011, teaching other people how to grow online businesses themselves in a way that they can live life to their fullest. Now, in this episode, we dive through the evolution of her business, everything from starting out to one-to-one services and coaching to one-to-many, going from a launch model to an evergreen model, and everything in between, the evolution of a sustainable six-figure business. That's what we're going to talk about in today's episode. Hey, Becca. Yay. I'm so excited to chat with you today. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, me too. It's so fun. We haven't chatted in a while, so this will be great.
We really haven't. So I actually feel like this episode for me is full circle because back in 2015, and I think I told you this before, but back in 2015, when I discovered the online space in general, like I consumed every piece of content on your site. Like, like the people that you're like, oh my gosh, this is like you literally led the way to my intro for the entire online space. I bought Hey Nice package back in the day.
You're like my most successful case study then.
And I like literally I consumed absolutely everything that you put out. So it's so fun and just so full circle for me to be like, you're like my mom in business. In a really weird way.
Gosh, I think I forget that because you're so successful that I forget that. Yeah.
No, it was literally like you are like a part of my evolution story. So thank you. First of
you're
all.
welcome.
And I would love for people to hear kind of your origin story. So, you have this incredibly successful group coaching program now, but I want us to like kind of go back to the beginning and just hear, how did you get started? What got you into online coaching, into this virtual space in the first place?
Yeah, I started back in 2011. And so that's ages ago now in internet land, over a decade. And I was actually a health coach. I was in a nutrition coaching program at the time. Registered holistic nutritionist is what we call it here in Canada. And I also at the same time was doing a life coaching program because I started to realize it was really hard to get people to change their diets. Nobody wanted to. And I was like, I need coaching skills. And so I was always practicing my coaching skills with the people who were in my world, which were like other health coaches and other nutritionists. And it's funny because the thing that they all seemed to want was like, what am I going to do with my life? Like once I'm done this program, like what do I want to do? Do I want to start a business? Like, do I want this to be my career? So I was like life coaching them on that stuff. And many of them were starting their own businesses. And at the same time, I was working really, really part-time for like $12 an hour for this online wellness company. And I was like doing their blogging and running contests and doing their Twitter. And I had no background in any of that stuff, but so I was getting paid $12 an hour for it. And so I was learning these things, and I remember coaching my clients, and on the side, I'd be like, this isn't coaching, but I can just show you how to start a blog. Like, you should just get online. So I was kind of teaching these things that I was doing in this other business I was working for. And as I started doing that, I started growing my own business. I started to see that, number one, I didn't want to do the health coaching. Like, that got dropped pretty quickly. Well, it seems quickly now in the grand scheme of things, but at the time, it probably took me like 6 months to finally really own the fact that like, this isn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't feeling clear. I remember trying to make my website and I was trying to put tabs of like nutrition and recipes and lifestyle and business. Like it was like not niched in at all. And it wasn't making sense. And I couldn't even understand it. So gave myself permission to like drop a few of the things. And it sort of morphed as it went into what it is now, which is teaching marketing for coaches. But at the time, probably for the first 5 years, I would not have said, maybe 3 years, I would not have said I was a business coach in any way, or, I was like, I do coaching for businesses, but it was like, I wasn't teaching marketing. And I think that evolution just took me getting the confidence to realize, I actually know what I'm doing and I can teach this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because I find that so many people that I talk to and I ask their origin story feel like it is very similar, where it's just kind of like, well, I kind of stumbled into this online space and then realized, hey, this is good. And then people asked me, could I do this? And then I did it. And then I'm like, I guess I could do more of that thing. And so it's just really
Yeah.
cool that how that happens for people. So did you start out with group coaching or were you doing mostly
No,
one-on-one?
I started out one-on-one. So I actually moved into a camper van. My boyfriend and I at the time bought like a really crappy old 81 Chevy camper van and went off on a year-long rock climbing trip. And so I was like trying to grow this business in the very first year while I was on a year-long road trip. And so I was doing one-on-one mostly, and I'd work 2 days a week and climb the rest of the week, basically. And I think actually during that year, because I tested a bunch of stuff during that year, I was just like, let's see what worked. Like, let's do a VIP day. Let's do this. I think I actually ran one small group coaching thing. I could not even tell you what it was about. Like, I have no idea at this point. But I seem to remember gathering like 5 or 6 people together in some way. But I would say I started with one-on-one and I sort of scaled my one-on-one from there. So I got back from that trip, raised my prices again. As you get better at what you do, you start to realize, okay, I can do this in like a shorter amount of time and I can probably charge more for it. So I kind of went through that cycle for the first 2 years, I would say. And then I started what is the program that I run now, which still has the same name, which is called Uncaged Your Business. I started it in 2013. So yeah, that would have been about 2 years after I started the business. And it was like 12 people for $300. I was like, let's just try this. I basically took what I was doing one-on-one because I was maxed out with one-on-one. I didn't love the one-on-one. I knew, the way to scale it. I didn't feel like I could raise my one-on-one prices any more than they were. Now I look back and I'm like, okay, I definitely could have charged more. But, at the time I was like, this is the most I can charge for this. Yeah. So I was like, well, let's just see if I can do this in a group. And so I did a little beta test for it, got 12 people in, looks like it worked. And then it's gone from there.
I love this. So I think what's really interesting too, because I've done something a little similar in the sense that, the program that I launched very early on in my business is literally the same thing that I sell. And so I've told people before, I'm like, I don't know. I don't foresee myself ever launching, like people have like a course, like here's how to create a course. And I'm like, I would have the worst course ever. My course is like, just do something and then stick to it for 6 years. Like choose an organic social media platform and then do it for 6 years consistently. And that is my like how to grow a course.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I'm the same. Like I didn't know how to launch then. I was, I don't even remember what I did to launch. I probably sent some emails out and posted my Facebook group, like it didn't have, and then I've gone full spectrum to like hiring launch managers to keeping it simple. Like I've tried all the things over the years, but when I started, I was like, I don't know, I'll just ask in my group and see if anyone wants to do this.
I love it. So let's take a picture of, I feel like we have a good picture of where you started, right? And I love, by the way, I just love the whole idea behind like the Uncaged Life, that your program is still, uncaged business, because it feels like such an embodiment of who you are. Like I watch your life on Instagram and all the rock climbing. I'm like, like you're such an adventurer. And I love every part of it. So and I love that you've kept that consistent too. Like you've stayed who you are in your business and you're like, no, I'm running this business so I can live a life that I want and not the other way around. So I love that. So let's take a picture of where you are now. Like, and it's okay to brag a little bit because I want people to know like what it is that you're doing. Like, what does your day-to-day look like? What is your business if we took a snapshot of it right now?
Yeah. So funny because we just sort of revamped Uncaged Your Business. We were running it in 2 different ways for the last many years. I don't know, 5 years. We were launching it live twice a year. So we would do these big launches. We'd get about 100 people in, sort of a low multi-6-figure launch. And then we'd sell it on a self-study program the rest of the year. And so that was like, that's pretty much the only thing we sell. We have a couple other small programs. And so this year we decided to, after a rough launch last fall, just rough personal stuff going on. Launches were just weird during COVID. Like everyone I talked to was like, no one's buying anything. So it was just a weird launch. It was fine, but it wasn't great. And I started to realize I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to launch this way because it's like full on. And I loved it up until I stopped loving it, basically.
Yeah.
And so we just made the decision to turn the program into more of an evergreen enrollment so people can always sign up. And now it's a year of support. So they get a full year. We've hired other coaches to come in and support. So it's not just like all relying on my shoulders, which was starting to feel very heavy in my business. Like it's just me doing the delivery. I need support. And my students are going to get better results anyway. So we just rolled that out last week. So now we're just getting the program up and running. We're sort of training our coaches. They're leading the coaching calls. We're fine tuning all the little things in the program that you need to do when you revamp something like that. So the day-to-day now is definitely like, it's busier than I would like it to be because we also just hired our first full-time team member. Yeah, that was a very scary one. And I'm like, why didn't I do this sooner? Like everybody says that, right? And so we're training her up. And yeah, there's just a lot more sort of communication and things that are happening right now. But I feel hopeful once the program's up and running that I'll get back to having a little bit more uncaged time.
Yeah, well, and I think that that's it. Anytime there's a transition point, there's always the like, okay, I'm doing this decision to lead to more freedom, but sometimes it feels like more work in the beginning.
Yes,
to get to the point.
I've definitely had those moments where I'm questioning, like, was this the point of this? Like, why am I working all the time? But I know that it's just it's a means to an end right now, and we'll get there.
For sure. Okay, so I love this, and congratulations on the new version of
your
program.
It's
it
exciting.
Sounds like it's going to be epic.
I think
that could be
great.
Scary too. Like, has there been any kind of fears of transitioning to this new style? Because you are removing yourself a little bit, which I believe is truly a way to grow and to have more freedom, is to start to inch yourself out of some of that. But are there any kind of fears with that?
Yeah, I had a ton of fears. I think the big one was when I was running the program live over 5 weeks, I was super involved, like in the Facebook group every day, answering every question. We'd stay on the calls until every single thing was answered. Like I was there because it was only 5 weeks. Like I could do that. I can't do that for a year. No. And so as I'm specifically offering less support, it feels like, oh my gosh, the students aren't going to get enough. My team keeps being like, that's why we have the other coaches. They're all very smart. You hire them for a reason. You know, you did your due diligence. They're going to be amazing. And so I'm having to just get my ego out of like, but the students need me. I'm like, no, they don't. They need other smart marketers also, like multiple viewpoints, you know? And then I've had the fear a little bit of like, are people going to still want other program coaches to be helping them? Because I've signed up for programs before. I'm sure you have too, where I signed up because I wanted the person running it. I wanted their eyeballs, and I never even saw them. Like I joined the program and it was all the program coaches. And in some of those programs, the coaches have been incredible. And I've been like, oh my gosh, they are better than the leader, like amazing. And then some, like they kind of sucked. And I was like, this isn't really what I signed up for. So I've had the worry that other people are going to think the same thing of like, well, I want Becca. I don't want these other people. But again, pushing my own ego aside, I think I'm just really in our marketing trying to play up like these coaches are amazing. They have skills that I don't have. Like they're going to be able to teach you things that I'm not going to teach you. And hopefully we'll start to get like reviews and feedback about the coaches and testimonials that we can kind of share to help ease that fear. If it's even a real thing, maybe no one even cares. Maybe that was just my own thing.
No, I totally get that because we've done a similar thing where we have one higher ticket program. We have coaches for that program. And looking back, I'm like, literally, these people give, because every once in a while, I still will jump on calls with them. And sometimes I'll give an answer and then they'll give a follow-up answer. And I'm like, oh, forget my answer. Their answer is way better.
Yeah. I think we raised the price. And so, which we raised the price marginally considering we went from 5 weeks to a year, but it still feels like no one's going to buy at the higher price point, which is obviously not true. So yeah, lots of fears, all the usual fears of making a big change,
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what I want to dive into because I really would love for this to be the evolution of a multi 6-figure coaching program, which is what you have, where you are at right now. And there's so many different pivots that it feels like you've probably had to take, at least like it looks like from afar. And I know, my business in a similar way. It's like, okay, it's not about throwing out the whole game. And I feel like a lot of people get stuck in that word or just like, oh, I'm bored or this isn't working or that let's scrap the whole thing and start over. It's like, no. Let's actually just do a little pivot to what is working or what's going to be more satisfying or what just feels right. Right.
Yeah.
And so I would love just that origin story to now. What are some of like the major milestone moments that you feel like have taken you from, hey, here's where I was to, we can talk about like, this is when I became a 6-figure business. This is when, or when I hired people or however you want to break it apart. But what do you see as kind of like some of your milestone moments?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to think through the evolution of the program and like the major changes we've made. I think definitely just being willing to beta launch it, messy, get 12 people in, let's see how it goes. Like that was key. And that year I actually launched it every second month. So I launched it was 4 weeks. So I launched it, ran it, for the whole year. So I launched it like 4 or 5 times. And that, although I would not recommend it as a long-term thing for anyone, it really gave me the ability to like get really, really good at delivering the program, fine-tune the content, all of that. And so that was huge. I would never do that now, but it was really, really helpful at the beginning because I was still trying to figure it out, right? And the sooner you just get it out there, messy out the door, the faster you can start to figure out how to make it better. So that was definitely a big one. Moving from that model to 2 launches a year really helped because previously people were like, oh, I'll just do it next month. I'll just do it next month, right? But when it was like, we're only offering it twice a year, you're going to wait 6 months. Your business is going to probably get nowhere in those 6 months. Like you should sign up now. So we were able to really grow our launches when we did that. And I did a whole revamp of the content. So same thing. I was like, okay, I can see where it's limiting and where the current way the content was structured, it was like really, really reliant on the coaching calls for me to sort of be doing the teaching. And so I turned a lot of the teaching into recorded modules, which made a huge difference because obviously then it can just scale, right? It's like, here's all the content. You can do this on your own. And the coaching calls are to support that. So that really let us grow. And I can't remember, I think we grew slowly. When I was doing it every couple months or every second month or whatever, I think we were getting about 20, 25 people. And then when we did our first like launch, I think we had 75 people and then anywhere up to like 150 people. So it sort of just, it grew like that, but it gave us the ability to actually scale it in that way. And so that's probably when we had our first like multi-6-figure launch, was doing it that way.
So what has been and has it pivoted? What was your kind of list building? Like, who were these people? Where were they finding out about you?
That's what we learned, right? And that's now why we just hired our full-time team member. It's like, oh yeah, marketing now is a full-time job. Like that is what you are doing in your business most of the time. So we actually relied really heavily on Facebook ads. That was in the heyday when Facebook ads were killing it. They're not anymore. And so that's something we're struggling with right now. But yeah, we really, really relied on ads. So we would do, I can't remember, maybe 4 weeks or maybe 6 weeks of like list building ahead of time. So just general sort of get people on the list. And then like three or 4 weeks of actual pre-launch content where we'd be talking about, mentioning the program, getting a waitlist sign up, and then ads for the actual launch. And we were getting, it was costing us like nothing to get people in.
Yeah.
And so we really relied on that. And that is how we had, the biggest launches we have, you hear these people who are like, I had a 6-figure launch, but they spent like, I made $200,000. I spent $175,000. That was not us. We would spend $10,000 and we'd make like over $200,000.
Amazing.
So that was great. It's not happening now. So that's a big shift.
You also have a Facebook group. Is that a lead generator for you?
I guess it is. It's one of those things that we haven't really properly tracked it. We've started trying to do a little bit more tracking where we're putting like specific links in there so we can see if people are coming from those. But I did use it during launches. So the Facebook group was always intended to be like students coming together and people coming together just to like help each other, ask questions. Like I was sick of answering questions about tech things I didn't know about. So I was like, oh, go ask in the group. That's a great question. And so that's what it was intended for. But during launches, I would mark it in there. So I always thought of it as kind of like an insurance policy. I was like, people might not see the emails or they might not see what's in the group or they might not see the ads. But like if we just do all of them, people will see them somewhere, right? So I assume that it is, but we haven't been super, super intentional with using the group probably as like to the best of our abilities.
So we go from 1-to-1, then we go to group coaching. And then we go to the group coaching, but in like a recorded course format and these little like every other month kind of little mini launches, which I honestly think it sounds like you said, I would never go back and do it. But like you said, I think that was kind of rapid testing model.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to learn really quickly what works, what doesn't work. You got to know your students really well. So I really like this evolution so far because I feel like it could be really prescriptive for other people too. And everyone obviously gets their own way. There's no way to completely replicate. I'm sorry, but you're just not going to go out and get really cheap Facebook leads right
Unfortunately.
now. But as far as the 1-to-1, 1-to-many, all right, let's try like digital course format. Then you went into these big launches. So break down what a typical launch would look like for you now that you moved to like a twice a year launch model.
Yeah. So then what were we doing? So we were running all the Facebook ads. So the pre-launch sort of list building stuff. We relied heavily on email lists. So if you're not already, keep building your email list because that is the only thing you really have. even though open rates are crap and all that stuff, it's still important. So we had like a thorough email sequence, everything from pre-launch leading up to like open cart, all the way through closing the cart. And then I did a lot of Facebook Lives. So that's actually where I probably used the group the most, was I'd go live in the group and on the Facebook page. Again, just insurance policy, go on both. Usually just sort of repeating the actual launch content. So whatever the email had been about, I'd get on a Facebook Live and sort of just talk it out a bit more casually, just because people like to see your face.
Yeah.
At some point, I don't know when this started, but at some point in those few years while we were doing these 2 launches, I brought in a mindset coach to help coach with me. And so she and I were coaching together on the calls, and that was a huge shift. But for the launches, then we actually did 5 days of free coaching. So the week before a cart opened, we would open up these free coaching calls and people could just drop in and see what it was like to get coached by us. And that was really useful because I think it's hard for people to really conceptualize what they're getting. And so that was great because people would come in with a niche problem and we would just like hash it out right there on the call. So we did the 5 days of free coaching. We did a Zoom office hours. It was kind of we don't do sales calls or consults. So we kind of said like, if you have questions, drop in. It's an open Zoom line. Other people might be there. We'll just be talking about the program. And then what else did I do? I did a lot of things with my email marketing. So I'd go in and I'd like look at who was opening every email and clicking, and I would like send personal emails to them specifically. So I like did a lot of creeping behind the scenes in the email marketing as part of the launches. But I think that was it. We've tried things like 3-part video series or like a challenge. We've tried all of those things, but ultimately, and what we still do is basically the pre-launch content. Up until we just changed this model, we were doing the 5 days of free coaching and emails and Facebook ads. So like we still keep it pretty simple, I think, considering how launches can get quite complicated.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. I'm assuming, I mean, you said you would launch twice a year and you did this for how many years?
Like 5.
5. So,
probably.
I mean, that's 15 launches, and your launches minus probably some tweaks, did they stay kind of relatively the same?
They stayed the same. Yeah. And people would, as over those years, I had new team members and they'd be like, we should do this and we should do that. And I was like, don't fuck with my launch. Like, we're just going to keep it the same. We added little things and we took away things that we were like, that seemed like a waste of time. Like, let's not do that again.
Yeah. So we still do launches too and haven't moved away from them. And people are like, oh, launches, like that seems like I'm like, okay, launches feel like a lot of work if you're reinventing the launch every single time. But if it's still working right now, there is this sense that like if something doesn't work anymore, you change it. Or if it's just, I think you're in a shifting time where you're like, this serves me better mentally and emotionally and the business like stability wise. But like if people still in a launch model, I do think that there's something to be said for just kind of that, just keep doing what's working and then shift the little things that aren't, or try new, we'd try something new. Like, okay, we do a post-launch recap. What went well? What could have been better? What are we definitely going to do next time? And just we implement a few of those things every time. So
like we used the same emails for 5 years.
Yeah, right?
Like,
too.
Because if you think about it, most of the people coming into the launch are new from that list building and lead gen that you're doing before the launch. And so they haven't seen them. And people who have been on your list and seen them, they don't remember, really. Yeah. And if they do, also, who cares? Doesn't really matter. So we've reused all the same Facebook ads, all the same emails, like literally just going in and tweaking dates.
I mean, that's amazing. And now it's like, okay, now it's time for a shift. And I think that that's kind of, I do think there are cycles. And I don't know, like maybe you're like me and you've been doing this longer, but I feel like there are these shifts where it's like, hey, let's run this cycle. Let's do this. All right, now maybe it's time for a new cycle of business. And what does that cycle and that phase look like? And so this new cycle is evergreen, right? And so tell me what you're most excited about for the evergreen model and what that kind of looks like.
I think overall, I think it's going to be better for our students because during the 5 weeks, we were quite intensive. We were in there, but then we were just like, okay, bye, peace out. And so, and our students are new businesses, they're new coaches, they're just getting started. And so during that first year, most of them are in their first year of business. There's so many ups and downs and their niche changes and they fall off the wagon because they get busy and they come back. And so I was like, we need a way to support them through the ups and downs because they always come back and they're like, we wish we could still ask questions after the course was over. And I was like, I'm in the mountains, like, bye.
Yeah.
And so it just wasn't built into the model that we had or the price point. So now with this new one, they can like come back and ask questions for the year. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that it's less intensive for me. So like when I hop on those coaching calls once a month that I'm doing, I'm going to be stoked to get on. Whereas like in the 5 weeks, like by the end of it, it's tiring. Not that I'm over it, but I'm like, okay, I need a break. I definitely need a break after this. So it was really all or nothing. And this is just a lot more like steady and level. And it came about because my partner and I were talking about maybe having a baby. And I was like, I cannot be running this business this way. If we have a kid, like this is just not going to work. And so it really just felt more sustainable for me, for the business, like for the whole team too.
Yeah. So do you have anything right now that, like, after people are done with your program, do you have something else or do you refer them to somebody else at this point?
Like for this new model, we have no idea because it's a year and it just started.
Yeah,
but,
that's true.
Right. But I'm thinking like if people are interested, I can see us creating sort of an ongoing, I never wanted a membership, but I guess it would be kind of like that where it's like you can just pay and keep coming to the coaching calls for a year. Because even though they might not need like the foundation stuff that I coach on, like their niching and their messaging, although they might, because every time you create a new program, you need to come back to that stuff.
Yeah.
But they still have the other marketing calls and the co-working and all the other stuff that we do. So if people are interested, I can see us being like, sure, here's like a no-brainer price for you to just continue. But it's so far away. So we got a whole year to figure that out.
It's exciting though, because there's definitely like.
But definitely no next level programs. Like there's no like, oh, and then I have this high ticket VIP thing. Like I'm the same as you where I'm like, I sell the one thing. I don't blow it up. I don't like, everyone's like, you need to have multiple offers and tiers and this leads into that. And I'm like, I just want the one thing. Like, I don't want to complicate things. So yeah.
We did at the end of our program. So mine's it's just like the course, right? But at the end, I just got a few people that I like know their programs really well. Either I've been through them or I'm just really good friends and know they get results. Mm-hmm. And I just put little videos. I was like, here's like 5 different paths you could go in now. You can choose one of them. And hey, if they have an affiliate link, cool, you can bring me their affiliate link. Cause at a certain point, like I do believe in like ascension ladders and stuff in your business where it's like, here's my intro. And then, like you have your smaller products and then like some of your smaller, probably digital products lead into this bigger group coaching. But then if you don't want to offer something, then it's kind of like, I'm okay. Like at a certain point, it does have to stop. It's not like, and now I'm, whatever. So that's the way we facilitated it, was just like, here are 5 other people who teach things that could be the next step.
Totally.
I'm not going to teach those things.
Yeah, we do the same thing too. Cause like, I just think of how much marketing it is to sell one program like this.
Yeah.
And then to like add a whole other offer. I'm like, I just don't, that's like a whole other, it's a whole other marketing thing that needs to happen. And I just don't, it's more of my time. It just overcomplicates it. So I've been really good at like staying in my lane and being very clear that like, this is the thing I want to sell. And every time I have a new team member, they have all these ideas about courses we could create. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do those. Yeah, go find me an affiliate link for someone else who already does it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Have you read the book Essentialism, or do you know about that book?
No, actually, I haven't even heard of that one.
I feel like you probably don't need to read it because I feel like your business is like living out that book. And it's literally like, I tell people all the time, I'm like, I feel like so many entrepreneurs, why they don't have success, like why you started in 2011 and you're still here. While most businesses fail, you are still here grinding it out, growing, making this thing work, working toward even more time freedom, is because so many people like try to put their energy in 10 or 15 different, let me do a new product and a new thing. And now I'm going to be on TikTok and now I'm starting a podcast. Even before we started, you're like, I thought about doing a podcast, but nope, it's not time. And it's like, if you can get yourself just to say no more often.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean you say no, like you do need to say yes to opportunities, but there's such a balance of, no, I'm just going to say no and get really good at the things I'm doing because that's sustainable and it works. And it's like the boring side of business that people don't want to talk about. It's like, there's actually really good money if you just like stick to one thing.
And like, I work with a lot of new businesses. And so their biggest fear is like, I'm going to get bored if I'm just coaching this one niche and I'm just doing this one thing. And I'm like, it's not boring. Having a lot of free time and a lot of money. Like, I don't think anyone should be doing work that they don't like. Like, that's not what I'm not like, just pick something and make the money. Like, absolutely not. Like, you have to like what you do enough, but this constant search for like, I need the next exciting thing, it's really exciting. It's going on vacations and take it like, like having the spare income to do the things you want to do and still getting to help the people you want to help. And I think it's not until you're in it and you're doing it that you start to realize like, oh yeah, this is the path to like, this is the path to freedom. Maybe not for everybody. I do know successful businesses that love to create new offers and do it all the time. But I think like you also have to be really good at that. I'm just not like, I'm not good at planning ahead. I'm not good at the tech side. Like I used to just whip something up and get it out there. But it was very, very low tech. And now that we have like more systems in place, I'm just not set up to do that. So if you're good at that and you love it, then great, but definitely pay attention to whether it's like hindering your progress in your business.
For sure. So what would you say, like if there's been one consistent theme that you're like, this is probably the thing that has kept me going, or the thing that I feel like I've done pretty well to sustain this growth over time? What would you say that
Yeah.
is?
I think for me, it's been content based. So it's been like being very clear about what I teach and what I don't teach. Like that, because it's really easy as, like you said, as students finish the program and they ask for more things, it would be really easy to be like, oh, I'll just add that into the program and I'll just add that in, or I'll create another thing. And so for me, it's been really, really clear of like, here's the things that I'm really good at and the things that I'm going to teach. And here's what's outside of that scope. And so it makes it easy for me to talk to students about what they're going to get and what they're not going to get. It makes it so easy for me to sell. Makes it easier for me to assess like who's a fit or not. Because it's like, do you need these 4 things or not? Okay, cool. And so that's been really, really helpful. And I think that like, it's not easy because there are times where I've been tempted to be like, oh, I can teach that. I'll just add a module. I'll just add a module. And then the messaging gets watered down. It's not as clear. It just becomes like sort of a general, let me help you build your business in all these many ways course, which is not something people tend to want to buy because they want more clarity on what they're going to get. So I think that's the best thing I've done is just stay very focused on stay in my lane.
Yeah. Oh, such a good message. So, in anything else, like if somebody is maybe feeling stuck, like I'm sure there's been places along this evolution that you felt stuck, which we didn't fully get into, but maybe bring me back to one of those moments where you felt stuck, what you did about it, because I do feel like there are people that could really benefit from that because they're feeling that right now.
Yeah, I definitely think I can't think of a specific moment, but definitely over the journey, hiring people to help because I'm not a naturally organized person. I still don't use a project management software. Like my team uses it, and I'm like, please put everything in this one Slack channel, and that's where I will look. I will not look in ClickUp. It makes my head explode. So I'm not organized. I'm not good at like that planning, and especially as I got into bigger launches, I suck with all things tech. And so I was doing it all myself before. And once we started to grow and sort of get into this bigger model, I was like, I just need somebody to just come in and tell me what to do. Like I need a boss to be like, we need this from you and we need this from you, and then I'll get it done. And so making that shift to actually bringing people in made a big difference because it was like, and it's a huge learning curve and a huge like growth area. It still is for me with hiring. I didn't know what I needed, right? So I'm sure I made the wrong hires. I did not give people what they needed to succeed when I hired them. Like, lots and lots of growing pains with that. But I think just bringing people on and slowly sort of learning what are the roles I need and what do I actually need help with and like how are we going to manage it all was a huge, huge way of getting me through the moments where I was feeling super overwhelmed and like near burnout when I was trying to do everything myself. So handing stuff off. It's hard to hand stuff off though. So it definitely took a while.
There's 2 major themes that I'm picking up on. Number 1, action over perfection, which I love. It is 100%. It's one of our core values too, where it's just like, you know what? We're going to launch before it's perfect. This is going to be kind of messy. I'm not like pretending to have all this stuff together because, hey, we're human and we're not supposed to, right? And then number 2 is like, I love how you were like, I just stay in my lane because I think that so many of us feel the pressure to be all the things. Like our students are wanting this program, so I must create this new program. Oh, well, people are saying that they want more video content, so I guess I have to do a YouTube channel or that, like, or even as far as like, oh, well, I guess I need to get more organized, where in reality, it's like, or you could just show up, be you with your strengths and your weaknesses and knowing that, hey, the thing that maybe is my weakness is an opportunity for somebody's strength. So I can plug them in and they can be the organized ones while I continue to be the visionary, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, totally.
I love this. So honestly, thank you. This has been really insightful. And I feel like this is just such a good story. Like I love uncovering like the real, like, hey, here's how this has happened. And here's the pivots and just the sustainability of being consistent. So thank you for sharing that. It's such an inspiring story. Where can people find out more about you and your programs? Let us know a little bit about where people can find you.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you because it is fun looking back at a decade in business because now, we're having ups and downs. We're having challenges with getting things up and running and all, Facebook ads aren't working and all the things and it feels stressful. But I have to remember, I'm like, oh yeah, I've been doing this for a decade and I figured it out. So it's actually really good to look back. Sometimes I feel like the business just isn't successful, and it's more of a feeling than a fact. So it's good to look at the facts. I'm over at the Uncaged Life. We have a great free Facebook group called Uncaged Lifers, which is still rocking. I think there's like 15,000 people in there now. And again, like I said, it started as a place where people could just ask business questions and get help from other people. So that's a great spot. And then we've started doing some things over on Instagram. So over at the Uncaged Life, that took a while.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Abby.